So that dimension which I am referring to as a source of creation right now, what is its nature? Which is what I believe scientists are trying to figure out in some way. So, if I have to describe it in some articulation, we can only say it's nothingness. When I say nothingness, the moment I say nothingness, immediately in normal English language it has a negative connotation of not being anything or not worth anything. If I say you are nothing, it is understood as you're no good. So I'm not…
Yeah, he's confusing the semantical thing. I get it. So when he started, talked about the same thing that I did. He was talking about this, right? He said that we're trying to find this, and this is where all of creation and everything comes from, and we only understand this and this. That is what he's I think trying to say. And now he's talking about nothing, but he's confusing how the word is used when it is used as an adjective for a person, right? An adjective of the character of that person. So see, it becomes a different signifier on the basis of that context. So there's that.
Not referring to nothing in that sense, probably we would understand it better.
He's saying we're not referring to it in that sense, fine.
If you put a hyphen between no and thing, it is not a thing. It is non-physical in nature. So whatever you try to say about it in definition or in description is bound to be wrong even before you utter it, because it's non-physical in nature. So this non-physical nature, if you look at it, it has a fringe nature. It has a core nature which is absolutely non-physical, and it has a fringe nature which is dark, and it's a transition from non-physical to physical. I don't know, we should ask an ophthalmologist why it is so, but when I really look at…
Wait, so is he talking… we're going to rewind this. I want to get a clear visual idea of what he's talking about.
Because it's non-physical in nature. So whatever you try to… it is non-physical in nature. It is not a thing. If you put a hyphen between no and thing, it is not a thing. It is non-physical in nature.
So anything which is non-physical in nature would come under his definition of nothing, right? Then mathematics would come under the definition of no thing. Then an imaginary elephant right now in my head is going to come under his definition of no thing, because that elephant does not have a that does not have a physical form. So his definition of nothing is not the same as the void definition of nothing or zero definition of nothing. Keep a mind of that. I don't want him to be slippery about it and then change this definition mid discussion.
It is non-physical in nature. So whatever you try to say about it in definition or in description is bound to be wrong even before you utter it, because it's non-physical in nature.
No, doesn't have to be. I can understand the concept of mathematics, even though it is non-physical in nature. I can understand the imagination in my head, even though it is non-physical in nature, and I'll be right about it because I'm the source and generator of that.
So this non-physical nature, if you look at it, it has a fringe nature.
Exactly, Ilma is getting the point. The way that he defines nothing, it is anything which is not physical in nature. Then every abstract idea, concept, love is non-physical in nature, war is non-physical in nature, I mean the concepts. So does love become nothing? According to Sadhguru, it technically qualifies as nothing in his definition. So I have a problem with the definition. I don't think it is very thorough in how we understand nothing to be. I believe he's going… I'm going to only assume that he's probably going to then slipperily pivot it to something else entirely, and I hope he does not do that, honestly.
It has a core nature which is absolutely non-physical, and it has a fringe nature which is dark, and it's a transition from non-physical to physical.
if I had to keep up with his definition, right? Because now, by invoking an imagery of how it is, the texture and everything, what Sadhguru ends up doing is he gives it a sort of physical form in how we understand it to be, right? We imagine how it looks like, how it feels like, how it is. Then we are giving it physical form. That defeats quite the purpose of the point of nothing. But really, I can assure you, the ones and zeros as concepts do not have any velvety texture or whatever he's describing. They are abstract. They do not have properties as such. That he's trying to make a universal claim, right? He's trying to make a claim that anything which qualifies under nothing ultimately has this particular thing within itself. When we have we have examples like mathematics and numbers which do not have any of these things. So his definition, within his own definition, his example or his elaboration actually fails.
I don't know, we should ask an ophthalmologist why it is so, but when I really look…
Yeah, I get Shunya that that is exactly the problem that he is now talking about, idea or concept of existential reality. Because look at how he defined it in the very beginning. That is why I want all of you to always pay attention to how these people or how anyone defines the words, because oftentimes they define it as one thing that seems intuitive and then they go on to explain something else entirely. See how he describes nothing.
So I'm not referring to nothing in that sense. Probably we would understand it better if you put a hyphen between no and thing. It is not a thing. It is non-physical in nature.
It is not physical in nature. That is something that he is describing.
So whatever you try to say about it in definition or in description is bound to be wrong even before you utter it, because it's non-physical in nature.
That is the only criteria that he is given, right? It is nothing because it is non-physical in nature. So his definition is that something, that anything which is non-physical in nature qualifies under the criteria of nothing. It qualifies under the criteria of nothing. And therefore the thing that he is referring to is physicalness of it.
So this non-physical nature, if you look at it…
See, then he goes on to make physical claims about something which is he is calling to be non-physical.
It has a fringe nature. It has a core nature which is absolutely non-physical, and it has a fringe nature which is dark, and it's a transition from non-physical to physical. I don't know, we should ask an ophthalmologist why it is so, but when I really look at the sun or even the moon, particularly when I see the moon, people always… the sun is very much true, but it could be because you are getting blinded by the sun, which I don't, because I used to just stare at the sun for hours at one time. I always see a black halo around the sun, not a white halo. The same with the moon. I think I've asked so many people, they all see white halo, but I always see a black halo around the sun.
I hope he's building up to something rather than just describing I think a spiritual experience that he has.
Because I see the same thing within myself. Probably people will think I'm the devil if I say this. The very core of what this is, around that there's always a black halo. And this halo gradually is transiting from non-physical nature to physical nature, which is dark in nature. So, we traditionally, in yogic terminology, we say…
Physical nature, it is dark in nature and therefore it is white. Is he trying to say that abstract concepts are more true? Is that what he is trying to refer to when he is putting in the metaphor of light and dark? Because it's not literally light and dark, right?
Shiva, when he sits still, he is nothing. The word Shiva means… Shiva means that which is not.
Yeah.
That is, he is not. What is creation. What is not is the source of creation. So when you look at this aspect, the very core aspect is a non-existence. And immediately next to that, before the physicality happens, there is a dark face. We call something dark and always…
He's making things up, I guess. I mean, there is existence, there is non-existence, and even within his criteria of what qualifies as nothing, uh, this physical object does not have any dark thing, right? As such, in the sense that there is no ethereal form and then there is nothing and then there is this physical object. It's not quite that. Even if I am taking my brain signal to be what this is, then those are the two ways it can exist or it cannot exist, right? There is no not existence in between my understanding and this physical object existing.
In language and literature and in normal social connotation, the word dark is always understood as remote or even threatening or dangerous or negative. This is essentially because of the way our visual apparatus are made. Suppose you were an owl, you always would think dark as a very bright thing. So, the human perspective of dark being a negative aspect is a very limited way of looking at it. Our sense of vision, essentially. So, when I say…
He's expanding on the metaphor as if it is literal. I'm not sure exactly what he is trying to do with that.
Because of lack of terminology, or if I invent a new word, it won't be any better than dark, so I settle for dark. So this dark dimension is where you can understand the nature of creation. Beyond that, the total non-existent state, that is not a place to understand, that's a place to just merge, which is not the interest of a scientist. And mathematics will not go there. So, in the
way that he described nothing, mathematics literally does exist in that plane, according to his definition.
yogic tradition, we say when he moves, Shiva is a dark one. Always Shiva has been referred to as a dark one. In his ultimate state of Shiva, as Sadashiva, he is utterly still and nobody can feel him unless you're willing to become one with it. But when he moves, his initial phase of movement is dark. When he really comes out and becomes a part of the world, then he is light. So this is, in my perception, somewhere people who saw the nature of creation within themselves are trying to explain this in a personified way. In his core, he is absolutely still. You cannot know where he is. You can only become one with him. If you're willing to be sucked into him, it's all right. But if you want to, in any way transact with him, it is not possible there. But when he begins to stir, he's dark. There, if you want to go, you need courage. You are willing to transcend.
Okay. Shiva being nothing or being stillness is a reference to him being the god of destruction, because destruction ends up resulting in nothing, and he is the result of that metaphysical concept, and that is why he is both the deity of destruction and he is literally stillness. There is that aspect of it, right? He's the aftermath of destruction as well. And this entire concept of becoming one with the universe and becoming one with self, I do agree with it on the basis of the model that I discussed earlier, because reality is within my mind at the end of the day. This bottle exists because my brain tells me that it exists, and therefore anything that happens to me, my brain constructs it in that sense, right? It takes input and it constructs it within my mind. and therefore you can assume someone is a bully to you even if they are not, and you can still get trauma from it because ultimately it's your brain. And when you start living that concept, when you start understanding that everything that you see and everything that you experience is technically you, then you become one with life, one with stillness, and it's a Zen stage. It's a Advaita Vedanta realization. It is a Kashmiri Shaivism understanding embodiment, right? I agree with that. I do not disagree with that. What I do disagree with again is the way that he defined nothing. He made a couple of mistakes. His definition of nothing was inaccurate to what he is talking about right now. One, he is blurring the lines between metaphor and physical things when he is talking about this concept in the way that he is doing. That is two. Third is that he is utilizing light and dark metaphors when he is flip-flopping between it being non-literal and it being literal. So that is the three mistakes that Sadhguru is making. What main point he's trying to say is essentially the point of Kashmiri Shaivism. It is essentially the point of Advaita Vedanta, and I do agree with that particular core of what he's talking about. But his methodology is all over the place, and it is not good.
And you're willing to leave everything that you know and enter into a completely different area where you do not know what's the end for you. Or if you want to transact with him properly, when he becomes light, which is creation, you can
see again, he becomes light, so good, dark, so like bad, so evil. Why light and dark, and why are you correlating them with good and bad, and how does that relate to existence and non-existence? Right? He's blurring all of those boundaries, not very clear in what he's talking about.
transact with him. You can see everything as Shiva and experience it, you can be devout about it, you can worship it, all that. But when you go to the dark phase or beyond that, there is no worship, there is no nothing, it is just dissolution. Which today I feel the modern physics is very much going in this direction according to the lore, according to the yogic lore. How it goes is, Shiva was asleep. That means he became totally dead. But he's there, he's still, absolutely. And then Parvati or Shakti came and moved around him 3 times. Then he stirred up. It's from then creation happened. They clearly say they did not copulate. She just went around him 3 times. And the basic force of creation began to happen, which was not physical, which was a transition. So this dark face around Shiva began to expand. And then Parvati said, "Is this your creation? Look at this, what you created, just one dark wave of nothing. Is this what you're capable of?" Then he woke up. And then they copulated. Out of their copulation, the whole creation happened.
So Shiva created darkness, and then the copulation of Shiva and Parvati led to creation of what I assume he's going to refer to as the material world, right? That is what he's trying to say.
It could be a metaphor for
It is a metaphor.
Scientific understanding of forces and particles.
We have experiments where in absolute vacuum state, if you apply electromagnetic force, suddenly virtual protons and virtual neutrons
particles
happen.
come. Yes, yes.
It doesn't even have to touch.
Yes.
Just around that, if you apply electromagnetic force,
Yes.
virtual protons and virtual neutrons happen.
Yes.
So he said what you're saying is very similar. She just goes around
Yes.
and creation begins.
I think he's trying to make the point of something can arise from nothingness. I guess that is what he is trying to say.
The spontaneous creation
Yeah.
of particles happens, and they come in pairs. They always created in pairs.
That's what
which is intrinsic.
they happen in pairs and then they copulate.
Yes.
That
But it's very similar to a old theory I had, right? Because the question that all that we end up asking ourselves is that if Big Bang or any point, right, God himself, if it came out of nothing, how is that possible, right? How can something come out of nothing? So a logical turn, what do you call, a logical way around it that I was speculating about was that it's like a zero, right? This is it, this is a zero, that is nothingness. And then understanding of the world, or the way we understand everything, would be the positive terminal, or let's say matter comes, and if matter is created, antimatter should also be created, right? For every matter there will be an antimatter. If I have +1 and if I have -1, the moment I put them together, it will lead to 0, which is nothingness. And that is how things can be created from nothing, because they will ultimately sum total into nothing. So it mathematically holds. And maybe that is what he was trying to say all along, is the fact that the deeper layer is 0, and then there is another layer on top of it which is -1, and then another layer on top of it which is 1, which what we understand. Maybe that is the point that he was going about. He did not go about it very properly. For example, his definition of nothing was very off the mark compared to whatever he ended up landing upon towards the end of it. But this idea is interesting. Definitely, I also had this idea, but I wouldn't say it is a deeper and concentric model, right? There is no deep 0, then -1, then 1. No, there is a 0 at the center, and then +1 and -1 stem out of it in opposite directions. That would be the right model, not this hierarchical or even the concentric circle model.
they touched each other.
And that annihilates to create energy. Those particles, when they annihilate each other, the way the energy forces work is that the electromagnetic forces around create from nothingness a pair of particles, and the pair of particles, when they join, they copulate, actually spontaneously results in the creation of energy. This is a very well accepted scientific principle and verified in experiment.
I think he's referring to Shakti as energy. Interesting. So yeah, I think towards the end of this, I do agree with the idea, or at least it aligns with my own speculative model, or my answer of how can something come from nothing would be this. So this could be the apex of this video, because ultimately this entire live stream ended up being about how can something come from nothing, and this could be an answer, right? Positivity and negativity split out of 0, nothing, and they balance each other out and they total into 0. So yeah, a very interesting idea. I don't again, I have already told what I don't agree with, even the visual imagery, but ideas, I agree with it. I'm not going to say it's logically correct, but it is the way out if you want to understand how nothing can come from something. This is a nice abductive reasoning argument for it.